Hey, 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 if it's Tuesday, you know it must be the Unstoppable Story Show with Terrence Leffridge. So come on in, like and share. We're going to have another fabulous show tonight. We are talking tonight about turning the impossible into the I'm possible. This is definitely a show you don't want to miss. So grab your pen, grab your paper, and your great libation, and let's get ready for the Unstoppable Story Show. Hey, 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 it is an unstoppable day. Welcome, welcome again to the Unstoppable Story Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. I'm your host, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge with Unstoppable Coaching Services, where we help you create your vision. We help you implement your vision, but more importantly, we hold you accountable to living the life you were created to live. Thank you guys for joining us here on this Tuesday evening, whether you're joining us live or whether you're joining us later at the replay. We appreciate you. So come on in, like, share, and why not even start a watch party? Because I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to want this information that we're about to share with you this evening. So, how'd you guys like that new intro? It's something that I've just been able to create this week. I think it is wonderful. Let's just put it up there again, so you can see it's so nice. I want to show it twice. So let's look at that. Look at technology, y'all. Man, it is just phenomenal when it works right. Let's see. There you go. I guess you have to be in the full screen for you to get its full effect. But that is the new intro for the Unstoppable Story Show. So make sure that you are taking a look at that each and every week. You'll know that's when the show is on the air. So hopefully you guys are having a great week. We're coming up on the last weeks of May. Hopefully you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. A salute to all of our armed service veterans who had sacrificed their life or are continuing to sacrifice their lives for our freedoms. Shout out to my Uncle Harry, who is a Marine veteran in Atlanta, Georgia. Shout out and rest in heaven to my cousin. Um, oh God, having a brain freeze right now. Wow. It's going to come back to me before the show, but to all of our families and our friends and our colleagues who have paid the ultimate price for our freedoms, we salute you today as we memorialize you this weekend. Along with it, we have to add a whole new level of memorial. We look at the almost 100,000 people who have lost their lives as a result of the silent killer COVID-19. So we want to remember all of those people who have lost their lives as a result of this tragedy. And we support and we lift up the families that continue to go through what they've had to go through dealing with this pandemic. But thank God we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. We are coming to the other side of this. I've been saying to you guys for the longest that this too shall pass. And there has never been a statement so poignant as the statement, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And we are stronger as a nation. We are stronger as a country. We are stronger as a world as a result of what we have had to go through over these last, some people it's only been 8 weeks. Some people it's been almost 6 months that they've had to be dealing with this. So brighter days are ahead. The sun will come out tomorrow. And as we walk into this new normal, we want you to consider all the things that are possible for you in your life. You know, there was a quote by Nelson Mandela that said, Everything is impossible until it's done. Everything is impossible until it's done. And what he meant by that statement is everything looks like it just will not happen. It can't be done. It's impossible until one person does it. Because we live in a world where we can't be what we can't see, and our faith is always tested by the unknown. And if something looks too hard, if something looks too big, if something looks insurmountable, we automatically think that it's something that's impossible, and then we go in another direction. That happens with us in life, that happens with us in our careers, that happens with us in our relationships. Anything you can name, you probably have had something in your life happen that you thought was impossible. Whether it was impossible on a negative stance or whether it was impossible on a positive stance, something that you just never thought would happen to you, something great. It was that was not supposed to happen to you. It was impossible, but it did. And that's what we're celebrating today on the Unstoppable Story Show. We're celebrating the fact that you can turn the impossible into the I'm possible, because everything is impossible until it is done by one person. And you could be that one person. You could be that I in the I'm possible. And impossible is one word, but we're going to break it down into three words this evening. We're going to break the impossible down to its basic core, which is I am possible. And when you start looking at the impossible and saying to yourself that I am possible, you can make the impossible possible. And nobody knows that statement better than our guest that we're going to have with us this evening. Our guest is a phenomenal philanthropist. She is an author. She is a radio host. She is a producer. She is doing all types of things in her community with her nonprofits, from her ministry to her credit consulting company to being the published author of three books to being the CEO of Ego Entertainment Network and the CEO of the Life Support Company, where she is helping people, helping youth and families, mentoring them as a result of what she had to go through to rebuild her own life emotionally, mentally, financially, and just lately, physically. This young lady that I'm going to bring to you to the stage, it's impossible to even say that she's here today because she went through something that most people never survive. She went through something that is amazing, and she has an unstoppable story, and I can't wait to share that story with you. So let's welcome to the stage my good friend Jacquie Lente. Jacquie, mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Hey, I'm here. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thanks for having
Absolutely.
me on this evening.
Not a problem at all. Welcome, welcome to the Unstoppable Story Show. And you are going to hit us with an unstoppable story for sure. But before we do that, just take a second and introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. So, as he said, my name is everybody calls me Lady J. My name is Jacquie Merle, and I am an author. I am a community servant. I am a speaker, a mentor, a life and business coach, a CEO, serial entrepreneur. I'm a lot of things. So, but most importantly, again, I'm a servant first. So that's me.
So we are talking with this servant leader here on the Unstoppable Story Show. She's so shy, and we talked about this offline. That's what givers do. Givers don't put the focus on themselves; they put the focus on others. But tonight we are going to put the focus on you, Jacquie. So you better get loose, get comfortable, get ready to just let it out, let it shine, girl, because we are gonna let your light shine tonight because many people thought it wasn't possible for this day to come. Many had wrote you off. And
Oh,
as you'll
yes.
share in your story, many they were passing the last rites, and it was impossible for anyone to believe that you would be here today on the Unstoppable Story Show sharing your story. But you have proven to the world that you cannot be stopped and that you are truly unstoppable. So let's start with that first question. It's a question that I ask to each and every one of my guests that come on the show. And the question simply is, when you hear the word unstoppable, Jacquie, what does it mean to you?
Uh, I would have to say so many things come to my mind, but if I had to choose one thing, I would say um, consistently defying the odds over and over again, like to the infinity power. So consistently defying the odds, unstoppable.
I like it short and sweet, consistently define the odds. I love it. We're hanging out with Jacquie here on the Unstoppable Story Show. We've got, I hope I'm saying it right. Looks like Gerard A. Birch, who is joining us, saying she's amazing. She's not shy. I know we're gonna pull it out of her. We just, we're letting the world know because this show is watched not only in the USA, but it's watched across the globe and in countries like New Zealand and in continents on Africa. So thank you guys for always watching us. This is an amazing woman. And the first time I met her, shy was not anything that came out of my mouth in describing her. So, but this is her first live stream interview since a tragic circumstance came across her life, and it's a circumstance that changed her life immensely, and she's going to speak a little bit about that. And let's just put it out there on the table and start the conversation. You are a survivor and you are thriving of a severe brain aneurysm that took place in 2019, correct?
Yes, August 22nd, 2019.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to just tell your story about that situation that you went through. And we can talk about, we don't have to talk about it in great detail, but talk about the woman you were even the day of the situation before, just like that, your life changed in an instance. And then kind of walk us through what the journey has been since that happened. So the mic is yours.
Okay. Well, Terrence, I don't know if you had already warned your listeners, but if you all see me look down a lot or pause, that's just part of the side effects and things that I have to do while I'm talking and engaging. So, um, actually, this started it started well before I was diagnosed with high blood pressure in 2010 after I had my fourth child. Um, all of my pregnancies were high risk due to a condition that I had suffered as a teenager. And, um, throughout the years, I've been on different types of blood pressures, but everything that they would put me on would make my head hurt so bad, like be super sore, and I would lose my hair like I was like had cancer. So I stopped taking the medication. And I had been on like at least 4 or 5 different medications and they just couldn't get it right. So I stopped taking the medication. I stopped going to the doctor, which I shouldn't have. And use I started to use vinegar to substitute the blood pressure meds. But the problem was I only took it when I felt like my blood pressure was high, even though it probably was high when I didn't know it, or you know, I just used it to drop it like when I could tell that my blood pressure was high. So I was never a person that experienced migraines or headaches unless my blood pressure was high. And so instead of taking it daily like I would a medication, that's how I would take it. And you all know, for those who know me, I'm a workaholic. So, and I'm also the mother of 4 children. And, you know, when I started Life Support Company in 2015, that kind of took off, you know, the book support, the book series. And, I was speaking everywhere, all over the Midwest and traveling and things of that sort. And then I started this thing called Business Bangers, to kind of add another component to the entrepreneurship or business side of that company, while speaking to youth and families and things of that sort and working with the homeless. And then I kind of got a little wiped out, if you will, because I was just being pulled in so many different directions. There were so many youth and so many adults and families that were in need. And while this is what I was called to do, and speaking at this event and that event, keynote speaker. So I wanted to kind of fade away in the background, still do the work, but kind of fade away in the background. And so, but that caused me to put more on my plate. So on top of that, while trying to make it to, you know, all my kids functions at school, and everything they wanted to do, and I was trying to open up this new business center with my partners. And in April of 2019, they ended up having to call the ambulance for me like an hour before the grand opening of the business center. So they thought I was having a brain aneurysm then, and thought I was having a stroke as well, because I could not stand, and my body was just, it wasn't responding right. So they did the brain scan. They didn't find anything, but I was put on bed rest for 5 days. And once those 5 days were over, I was back at it again, nonstop, maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day, literally. And I wasn't eating, you know, like I should. And thank God for Mark, but poor Mark, he would yell at me every day, you know, about eating and sleeping. Stop adding this. Stop telling everybody yes.
And
And
Mark
so,
is for our audience.
I'm sorry.
Who is Mark for our audience?
Oh, Mark is my significant other.
Okay.
He's also my caretaker. So,
Okay.
He so he was getting on me, and some other people were too, and I just wasn't listening. I'm like, no, this has to be done. This person needs this. They need me, you know, they want me to do this. So between April and August, between the time I left the hospital in April and August, apparently there was a brain aneurysm that formed in my head, but I didn't know it, and the doctors didn't know it. So I didn't follow up with a primary care physician like I should have once I left the hospital in April. So, in between that time, I noticed that I started getting very sleepy all the time. So I would have to take a nap literally every day, or I feel like I was going to pass out. I became like super lethargic. I was extremely late everywhere. I moved slow. I started forgetting things. And I found myself being a little bit more irritable than usual, than, you know, a normal person would be. Um, and I was like, something isn't right, but I'm thinking I'm gonna just push through it. I just need to rest. You know, that's it. But on August 22nd, 2019, I went to sleep, and I went to sleep at 5 o'clock. I woke up at 6 o'clock, and I still didn't feel like myself. I still had like a slight headache, and I still was like extremely tired. I went into the business center. I did a show. I had my 2 younger children with me, and my adoptive little sis, Khadijah. And I was doing a show. So from 6 to 7, the headache in my head just began to get, bigger and bigger and worse and worse. And then right after her show ended at 7:30, at 7:35, I kid you not, it had to be like 7:35 on the dot. I was putting my laptop in my bag, and then it felt like somebody hit me in the head. I can just imagine being hit in the head with a hammer or a sledgehammer. That's exactly how I felt. And I buckled into a chair.
Mm.
And at this time, before that happened, I'm telling my kids, hey, y'all go to the car. Fortunately, the center was in a strip mall. So my truck was parked right in front of the door, right up to the door, parallel to the sidewalk on the strip mall. And I'm screaming at them. Something is telling me, get up out of this chair. I felt myself closing my eyes and kind of going to sleep. And something said, get up, Jacquie, get up. And so I'm yelling, trying my best to yell and tell them to come back, come back. And I send them next door to Dollar General to get some vinegar for me and some juice. I'm thinking that's all I need. So as I stand, I notice that, okay, this is not working. So it's going to take everything in me to try to make it to the car. So I stumble outside and half of my body makes it in the car and half of my body doesn't. So
Wow.
at this time I'm getting scared because I know that something isn't right. And they come back. I try to take the vinegar. I can barely do that. I'm laying on my left side and I start to panic and tell Khadijah to call 911. And they come, they put me on the gurney. I don't remember how I got out of the car. I'm pretty sure they got me out and put me on the gurney. I can hear my kids screaming, my youngest daughter screaming and crying. And Khadijah's trying to console her and tell her, everything is going to be okay. And then I go to the hospital. They're trying to keep me awake the whole ride. They're giving me meds. They're talking to me, injecting me with stuff. And I'm in the emergency room in the hospital bed. I don't remember all who is standing in the room. I know that Mark was on the road, so he was he's a truck driver. So they finally got in touch with him, and he was on his way. By the time he got there, I think he was in the room. And I'm trying my best to keep my eyes open. But I feel like I'm dying, and I was dying. And they come in the room and they say, I don't even remember getting tests. So apparently they took me to get some tests and scans of my head. And they say, I'm sorry, Miss Merle, you you have a ruptured brain aneurysm in your head.
Wow.
And I can hear, I think I heard my godmother kind of sigh or say Jesus. And at that point, I just started to cry. I couldn't speak. Um, oh, you have to forgive me if I get emotional.
No, take your time. And so we're talking to Jacquie Merle here on the Unstoppable Story Show, talking about turning the impossible into I'm possible. And even though this is a tough part of our show right now, we want you guys to send your positive energy Jacquie's way as she tells her story. And guess what? It wouldn't be an unstoppable story if there wasn't something greater on the other side. So we want you to stick and stay tuned, continue to watch, continue to listen, send her some positive energy, send her some comments in the chat room. We've got likes and hearts going across the screen right now. So let's take you right to that moment. The moment, and now you can talk about it in hindsight, but that moment that you got the diagnosis of a massive brain tumor. How did it feel, you being the person that was giving to everyone else, to be at a point where you couldn't give to anyone else or even yourself at that moment?
Um, I felt helpless, and I'm gonna be honest. I in that moment, I accepted that I was gonna die. Um, I hadn't seen my older two kids in like a week because they were with their dad during that week. But I wanted to. I was trying to get out. I want to see my kids, because I just knew that that was the last time I was going to see them. And um, I wasn't scared to die at that point. It was like inevitable. Like I couldn't. It's kind of weird. So I wasn't scared to die, but I was afraid of like what would happen to my kids. And I I I remember hearing people talking. I remember the doctors saying something about, so they were asking like, is she gonna make it? Could she be saved? And they were saying, well, we don't know. We can't guarantee that. We will tell you that these are our options: A, B, C, D. One of those options was brain surgery, of course. It's called a embolization or coiling embolization of brain aneurysm. And so they were asking who was the power of attorney, who's going to be making decisions, in case, she doesn't make it, or, and at that point I couldn't do anything. So of course I told them, I just kind of pointed at Mark, and my godmother. So they signed whatever paperwork needed to be signed. And I still don't think I saw my kids at that point. Looking back, I was kind of upset that nobody thought to bring them in the room, just because if I did not make it, I wouldn't have had a chance to say goodbye. But I remember being rolled into the operating room, and my eyes weren't open, of course, because whenever you have a brain aneurysm, especially where my brain aneurysm was, lights and sound are impossible, period. So they were talking, telling me what they were going to do. I don't remember everything they were saying. And then I remember going to sleep, and that was it. I don't remember when I woke up. I can't even recall like what day I woke up or what time of day it was, who was there in the room with me. I think the very first thing I can remember is a nurse and some doctors standing over me in the room, trying to get me to wake up. And they were trying to transport me from, I guess, the recovery room into a ICU room.
ICU,
Yeah.
okay.
And they were trying to hook me. They were hooking me up to all of these tubes and machines and different IVs and all of this stuff. And I remember when I came to that, I was just like vomiting everywhere, and I was in a lot of pain. And then I noticed that I couldn't do anything on my own. Like I couldn't sit up, I couldn't speak, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, nothing.
But look at this. Before you went into the operating room, they were already thinking that you weren't coming out. They were already putting plans in place, thinking that it was impossible for you to come out of this. And in hindsight, you have done some research into brain aneurysms, and we talked offline. You told me this stat that 65% of people who are diagnosed with brain aneurysms don't recover, right?
Yeah, they usually don't make it within the first 48 hours. And then if they do, a lot of them die within the first 7 to 10 days.
Okay, so listen to what she just said, y'all. People who are diagnosed with a brain aneurysm, a massive brain aneurysm like she had, usually don't make it past the first 48 hours. You see, she's here. Even if they make it past the first 48 hours, they usually pass within 7 to 10 days from here. She's still here. This was August of 2019, y'all. Impossible to beat those odds. But God.
Yeah.
But God is the I and the M impossible. He is the I am, And the great I am said what man said was impossible. The great I am turned around and said, wait a minute. I still can control this, and I still got things for Jacquie to do. So I'm going to make it possible for Jacquie to not only go into that operating room, but to come out of that operating room into the recovery room. Hey, she might be vomiting up some things, but guess what? She was vomiting up. To us, it looked like it may have been fluids. To us, it looked like it may have been stuff. To us, it looked like it may be the sugar honey iced tea. But to God, she was vomiting up all those past hurts, those past pains, those past things that she had gone through. He was cleaning you out for a purpose like today, so that you could be clean and clear to tell your story of what is truly possible when you trust in the great I am, the I and the M in the possible. So you're crying right now, but though we know that those are tears of joy because you have a testimony, and your platform was I'm possible even before this happened, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, this is just one of many traumas. Oh yeah.
So tell them. So we're gonna move away from the aneurysm. We'll come back later on. But listen, let's talk about you had the platform. The platform, as you guys see on the screen, I'm possible, even before you had this tragic uh, medical circumstance. So why was it important for you to have the platform of I'm possible even before August of 2019 when this happened to you?
Um, I would have to say because uh, I came to the realization of what my purpose was, and God allowed some extremely traumatizing, horrific things to happen to me throughout my childhood, even into my adulthood. And while I was angry before about why me, I understood that he allowed those things to happen for me to be able to help others along the way who are experiencing those same things. And every time I experienced that, it just seemed impossible while I was in it. And I remember God speaking to me in 2010 and um, telling me, that I'm possible. It was kind of like we were having a conversation, kind of like him and Moses. When he called Moses, Moses was not going. Okay, he was like, "Nope, not me, God. Like I'm a stutterer. I'm this, I'm that. Nope." And Moses arguing with a burning bush. And God is like, God is like, listen. You gonna go and you gonna do what I said do. And a lot of people don't understand that for some of us, we don't have a choice. Like we are either gonna go, willingly or go kicking and screaming. And at the
Yes.
end of the day, he wasn't taking no for an answer. Moses was to go and tell Pharaoh to let his people go. And that was it. Whether Moses wanted to or not, no matter how much he tried to run. And that's where I was with the impossible. So I'm thinking there is no way, God, that I have made it through everything that I have made it through. One person, you see people and they struggle with drug addiction or alcoholism or domestic violence, or just depression. But when you get somebody that has been through drug addiction, has been domestic violence several times, has been raped, sexually abused, kidnapped, homeless, uh, anything you can think of, everything that you could possibly think of, one person, suicidal attempts. There's no way that this person is still sane, and still here on this earth. And I'm like, okay, God, but I had to go through every bit of one of those things so that I could obtain the necessary tools and lessons, to pass down to other people that he was going to put me in front of. So that's where the I'm possible came from, because when people hear my story, they're like, that couldn't happen to you. You don't look like what? You know, like, yeah, it seems impossible. Oh, but it happened. You know, and
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah. People think
yes,
it's not possible that any one person could have gone through all those things that they went through. There's a commercial that comes on now, one of those PSAs for non-smoking, where the guy talks about you probably never met anyone who's had a lung removed. You probably never met anyone who's had throat surgery. You probably this. He names about 6 different things that you probably have met nobody who's had one of those things happen to them. And then he
hmm
says at the end, well, now you've met someone who's had all 6. And it's like, wow, that's not even possible. That's impossible to believe. But here's the one
right.
thing I know about us and about the things we go through. First of all, sometimes we got to go through some things in order to grow through some things. If you're watching
Oh
the
yeah.
replay or watching us live, then you need to write that down. Sometimes you have to go through to grow through. And then, Jacquie, here's the second thing. Sometimes the things that we go through have absolutely nothing to do with us.
Oh yes, yes. Listen, I know. Listen, most of the stuff I went through wasn't even for me. I tell people
Absolutely.
that all the time. It wasn't even for me. It was for, people like I'll never forget. I went to Chicago to speak to for Life Support Company. Went to Chicago to speak to the youth there at the Job Corps in Chicago, and afterwards, every time I go into a place, I can feel the sorrow in the room before I even start. And it sounds weird, and people look at me like I'm crazy, but I literally can feel people's sorrow before I even touch them. And so when I go in and I completely undress myself emotionally and begin to tell my story, and then share the tools of what I did and how I was able to come out each time and go through the stages that I need to go through to get better. At the end, all of them usually, flock to me, and then they begin to just pour out and tell their stories. And I remember a young lady coming to me and saying, how she was raped, and she became pregnant by her mother's boyfriend. And she went and told her mother that it was her boyfriend that did that to her, and the mother became so angry with her that she beat her to a bloody pulp, where she ripped the flesh from her skin, and she raised her pants leg up and showed me. She had large gashes of her legs missing, and I just immediately just grabbed her, and just held her, and you could tell that she was just so hurt that her mother didn't want her, and she, had been in the system, and they sent her to Job Corps. And so when I come across, and you'd be surprised at how many stories I hear of young
Yeah.
people and young adults, of people like that. I know what it's like not to be loved on. I know what it's like to grow up without a mother, to grow up without a father. I've been on my own since I was 15 years old. My mother chose a man who's a registered violent sex offender over her children. And I've been there. So God allowed me to go through those things so I could have the love and compassion needed to love on and help other people that are hurting and that are in those situations. And I always tell them, listen, it don't look good while you in it. It don't feel good while you in it, but it's necessary, and it's not for you. It's not for you. 9 times out of 10, it's not for you. But
Absolutely.
I thank God for everything that I have experienced and have been able to overcome, because it has made me into who I am today.
Absolutely. We are hanging out with Jacquie Merrill, Lady J, as she's affectionately called, on the Unstoppable Story Show. But we got some comments in the chat room. Sharon Johnson Leffridge says that, but you woke up and God is not through with you yet. Lynn Meyer says, God is so amazing, and that you have an amazing story. She's the author of the book No More. Her book is fascinating and talks about a little of the things that you've gone through in your life as well. So you two definitely need to connect. And then Billy Miller, the motivational minister, says that's one of those whatever devil stories for sure. God gets the glory, and you can continue to say, no matter what you've been through. And just like the PSA we talked about earlier, you've been through one, you've been through two things, you've been through three things, you've been through four, five, six, and now seven things in your life. Well, one of those things could have took an ordinary person out. But Jacquie's on this show because Jacquie is unstoppable, and she continues not to let things take her out. Things that are impossible to imagine people ever coming back from. You heard Jacquie talk about a little in her introduction that she had some suicidal ideation in her life because of what she went through. But God, she's been a victim of domestic of violence and abuse. But God, and now devil thought he was going to get her this time by hitting her where she lives, up here in her head, because we talked offline, and she's one of those organizers. She's one of those analytical people. She loves to work with the numbers. She loves to put things in their place. She loves to be in control of the situation. And so the devil said, all right, I got one for you. Bam! Literally hit her upside her head to
But you know
stop her.
what?
Go ahead.
You know what, Terrence? There's one thing I do want to share about that, because a lot of people, I say a lot of time, we give the devil too much credit.
Yeah.
Because 85% of what we experience that are outside of just God grooming us for what it is he wants us to do is a result of our own disobedience or our own choices.
Oh, I wasn't
And
going to let you get
so,
away with it. We were coming to that.
listen, there's always warning before destruction. And I can
Absolutely.
honestly say I have lived my entire life putting others before me. And I'm
Mhm.
not talking about just, like, let me open up the door and let you go first, or or simple stuff like that. I'm talking about fully and completely giving of myself, my last, or even when I'm on empty, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, financially. I've lived my entire life that way, and it is a result of a lot of the things that I experienced and things that were done to me, in my childhood, and some of the models or lack thereof in front of me. This
Right.
particular situation, though, with this brain aneurysm, um, I was disobedient in taking care of myself, health wise, eating right, sleeping, taking on too much. I'm, I'm not Superwoman, but I was moving like I was,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
You,
and
you believe the Karen White song.
yeah, right. And so, um, and the most important thing that God showed me while I was in the hospital room with my eyes closed, sitting in laying in absolute darkness, literally, was he showed me first. And what I mean by that is I was so busy taking care of everybody else and doing for everybody else that I forgot about him. Not so much forgetting him and who he is and what he means to me in my life, but I stopped um I stopped my interaction with him, my daily interaction with him, and I backed away, like I said, from what it was that he called me to do. And I
Yeah.
went somewhere else. I did it in a different way, I guess you could say. Um, and that's not what he told me to do. And so I wasn't listening. He couldn't get my attention. So this is just something that he allowed
To
to
happen.
happen, and unfortunately, he had to go to the extreme, and to pull me back. Yes, a lot of that was some of my doing, but it was also him getting my attention and telling me, hey, um, it's time for you to have a seat. We need to have a conversation. So, and he didn't just have a seat. I mean, he completely paralyzed me. So,
Right. Absolutely. But he also saved you, and
oh
that is
yes,
the
yes,
important thing to really let be known as we talk to Jacquie Morel, Lady J, on the Unstoppable Story Show, talking about how we turn the impossible into I'm possible. This woman is definitely the epitome of what is possible when you stop focusing on others and you start focusing on I and the great I am, the I and the M in the word impossible. And you talked about it, and he had to give you that experience. It's would I'm sure you would probably agree that you would have kept on giving and giving and giving, despite the
Mhm.
fact that you weren't getting any sleep, despite the fact that you were having headaches, despite the fact that you were already sensing problems, differences in your body. You were just continuing to give, 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 give. You were living full and dying empty, and that's what givers
Mhm.
do. We live full and we die empty, and sometimes the die becomes premature because we're living and giving more than
Mhm.
to others, more than we're living and giving to ourselves. Would you say that's a good analogy?
Oh yeah, definitely. Even when you are in the circumstances that seem impossible, God still has His hands on you. I mean, my story is a testament to that. But one thing I shared this with you yesterday too is that a lot of times too we connect ourselves with people that we're not even supposed to be connected to, or we put people in seasonal people, in the permanent category when they should be in the seasonal category. And then we just have to learn how to say no, because we find ourselves then, depleting ourselves and crossing oceans, for people that won't jump a puddle for you. So, I mean,
Wait, wait, wait,
when
wait,
I
wait,
was,
wait, 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 because we don't let those nuggets, we don't let those jewels just flow right by without bringing it home. Somebody, if you've got your pen, hopefully you've got your pen and you've got your pad, because note takers are money makers. You've got to give them that phrase again, because somebody, if you don't get nothing else out of tonight's message, you're gonna get this quote and you're gonna use this quote in your life. So hit them with it one more time, Jacquie.
so we find ourselves crossing oceans for people that won't jump a puddle for you.
Mm, mm, mm. Man, and on a rainy day halfway around the world today, somebody that message makes sense to me, because as givers, that's what we do. Because we are conditioned to give, we will jump across an ocean to help somebody, to make sure that they are sustained, to make sure that they are whole, to make sure that they get the services that they need, to make sure that we connect them with the people or the places or the things that are going to help them get to the other side. And we do that without any expectation of accolades or recognition. But then there comes a time when that same person that you jumped across an ocean for to help them get to where they are, well, it comes a time where you will need them, and then
Hmm.
they can't find the time, they can't find the energy, they can't lift a finger to do a minuscule thing, and you've already
Hmm.
given them practically everything that they possibly could have to get back on their feet. That happens. That happened to Jesus. That happened to Jacquie. That's happened to Terrence. And it's just a part of again that going through to growing through. And sometimes givers have to grow to that point to understand that even though you know how to give, there's a time and a place when to give. Would you say that's a great
Yeah, and not only that, not only when a giver also has to learn how to receive. So that is my issue. That is one of my biggest issues. Okay, because in this season, I don't have a choice but to sit back and receive, and it's almost like I'm being forced into doing something that I am extremely uncomfortable with. Because when you are when you are uh, groomed to feel like you're a burden, and it's it's joy, that you feel when you're giving to people, and you have to go a very long period of time where you're not in a position to give, and you have to receive, and you have to listen to instruction by other people, concerning, your personal self. It's mind wrecking. It is it really is. And but it's a lesson that we have to learn too, because there has to be a balance, and we can't only want to receive, quote unquote, directly from God, when he puts people in place for us to receive, from him through them, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So, I would have to say in this, to piggyback off of something that you said, when I was talking about people crossing oceans for people that won't jump a puddle for you. When I was in the hospital, they had to, Mark had to fill out paperwork for funeral arrangements. We had to say, where I wanted to be buried, who I wanted to eulogize the funeral, and things of that sort. And there were people who I have dropped everything for, done things for, stuff like that, or whatever, who did not even care to, come see about me, reach out or whatever. Not that it made me feel some type of way, because I'm old enough and I've been through enough to know that people are not going to operate like you do when it comes to just people in general, or situations like that. You can be in your deathbed and people will still, shoot vile things from their mouth, like, well, that's what she gets, or she deserves it. Oh, and trust and believe you me, there were some people that were saying that. There were people who were upset at the people that were helping me while I was in the hospital by taking care of my kids. you know, and I laugh about it because a lot of people don't understand or realize how many blessings they block when they do that, and they wonder why they are still in the same situation that they've been in for the last 10 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or why they can't
Yeah.
get ahead. And so, and all you can do really is pray for those people. And so I found myself to God showing me certain people that I had to disconnect from, and that I had to stop communicating from. And I don't owe you an explanation. I'm not going to explain something that's already should be understood. So I think that is important too, to our mental health, to our emotional health, and to our physical health as well. Because, like I said, being connected to the wrong things and the wrong people, like I said, you find yourself just burning yourself out. One, over something that you're not even supposed to be doing in the first place, and two, for people that you shouldn't even be doing it for to begin with. They're not your
Absolutely.
assignment.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And looks like you are truly at the point of growing through as a result of what you've gone through. So as
oh
we
yeah,
come down to the other side towards the end of our broadcast, going a little over, but this is something that I really felt that our audience needed to hear. This is one of those unstoppable stories that really needed to be shared with the world, and that's the whole purpose of this show, talking to ordinary people like Jacquie Murrell with an unstoppable story that I want to share with you guys, to let you know that if she can go through it, grow through it, and come out on the other side, then what's possible for you? As you listen to the rest of the show, I want you to look in the mirror and say, what am I possible? What's possible for me? And say to yourself, I am possible. I am unstoppable. And any other I am affirmation that you can think of as you listen to Jacquie's story. And Jacquie, the question now comes to you. Now that you have done the impossible because of the grace of God, you've been able to make it past the 48 hours. Been able to make it past the 7 to 10 days. You've made it past 7 months. You're coming up. You're closer to a year than you are to those 48 hours. What's
mhm.
possible for Jacquie now? And you can talk about what you've been going through, the recovery, the rehab, the getting back on your feet, the getting back to work. What's possible for Jacquie now?
So I would have to say, so I am still in recovery. Listen, I went from not being able to talk, not being able to, feed myself, comb my hair, not being able to walk, not being able to, wash myself up, brush my teeth, wash anything, to now I can sit up, I can talk. I went from not being able to withstand any light to withstanding, normal light now. If it's too bright, hospital lights, the sun and stuff, I have to keep sunglasses on. I can't look at a screen too long, or, television. So that's difficult. Sounds, that's still something that is difficult, but I'm not where I was before, but I'm also not where I was when it happened. So I thank God for that.
Yes.
And I know that I will never be the same. They're telling me that there will be permanent damage. So my right side is affected. I have some cognitive skills that have been affected as well. But with recovery, I have, still a ways to go. It's going to take 12 to 18 months, they said, for them to figure out what the permanent damage is. So they say that most people that have suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm will have some permanent damage. And a lot of the times it's extremely visible. Like I was sharing with you yesterday, when I look at myself and I look at other people that have survived a ruptured brain aneurysm, I look nothing like them. You have people that have some severe deformities or defects, or, and I thank God for them, but that they're still here. But I also have to thank God, like, I just cannot believe the miracle that I am 20 times over. Like, literally, the things that I have been through. I know this show is not enough time for y'all to even know the things that happened before then. Okay. But literally a miracle 20 times over. I mean, I've tried to kill myself 3 times, 3 different ways. And every single time I woke up,
Right.
and it's on top of a host of other things. So in terms of what is possible, I know that I will not be able to leave this earth until I am empty. Until I have completed the task and the assignments that He has placed over my life, I will not be able to leave this earth. And I thank God for that, because the richest place in the world is the cemetery. It's full of potential.
Yes.
So, and I have to say that this particular experience for me was to show me the power that lies within me, and given to me by God. I am the living, breathing example of God's love for us and who He is and who He can be for other people. If you want to know what it looks like for God to be a healer, then you can look at me. If you want to know what it looks like for God to be, a provider, then you look at me. I want to share this with you real quick, with your audience.
Go ahead.
When I tell you this whole entire situation was orchestrated by God, it was. So before this happened, Terrence, okay, me and my children were moving out of where we lived for 5 years. God said it was time to go. I had, now mind you, I'm an entrepreneur, so I own 3 companies. So all of my income is self-employment
Right.
income.
You got to make money.
Exactly. I went and I applied for several places for us to move to. So I said didn't want to get a house until I got married, so I didn't have to go through all of that, And so I got approved. A week before I was supposed to move in, they called me and told me they couldn't accept me because they don't accept your cash deposits into a bank. They just feel like, that cash could have came from anywhere. I'm like, what?
Right.
So
Yeah.
me and my kids were homeless for 2 weeks. Okay. 2 weeks. Now, I came and I applied to where I stay at now, and I got approved on the spot. It was in an area that I didn't want to be in, but it's still a nice area.
Right.
And all of the places, I applied for 5 places. Everybody denied me for that reason, you know? And so when I came here, I paid to move in. 7 days after I moved in, we hadn't even unpacked, I suffered the brain aneurysm. I did not get to pay my first month's rent outside of, what I paid to move in.
Right.
So August 22nd, I had the brain aneurysm. 7 days before that, I had just moved in. 30 days before that, I had just gotten my brand new truck. No money down. Thank God for good credit. No money down. Okay. And I suffered this brain aneurysm. Now I'm in the hospital. I can't pay any bills. I can't pay my truck note. The lights,
you pay your rent.
I can't get paid. Now, mind you, Mark is on the road. You know what I'm saying? He got his own bills too. Some bills he has to pay. I have business bills. I have a whole building, 2 buildings. And so when that happened, when I tell you that God put us here for a reason, the people at the office was like, don't even worry about it. They told Mark, don't worry about it. He said, he gave them PO paperwork, told them what happened. Don't worry about it. They allowed us to pay rent all the way up until, I say, maybe February of this year. We paid rent when we could. He took care of all the bills. The building that I had, God had sent me a tenant that wanted to take over or become a partner of half of the building before this happened. So they just transferred the building right to the tenant because I wasn't going to be able to rent it. They was already in place. And then the owner said, well, we're not going to charge you for these last 2 months. We're only going to charge you for this month and this month. And, the light company and gas company, they credited my account. I didn't have the insurance that I had didn't cover from like maybe day 10 on. No, the first day I got there up until maybe like day 10, it wouldn't cover it.
Right.
And the insurance that I got afterwards, they told me they weren't gonna be able to go back pay. But then I shared on social media. I got some mail in the letter a few months ago, and they wiped out the whole $195,000 bill. $195,000 bill. And when I tell you, listen, people I don't know was sending money through the Facebook fundraiser. My kids ate. Right. When I say we have not missed a beat, we got behind on some bills, but we have not missed a beat. All of the necessities were paid for. When I say he orchestrated this whole entire thing and he put the right people in place, I can't do anything. It's still surreal to me. It really is. So that's how I know it was him.
And now watch this, because this is the person, y'all. This is the person, y'all, that orchestrates. She said it. These came out of her mouth. She orchestrates. She likes to put things together. She likes to have control of the situation. And this was the situation, y'all. She was laid up in the hospital. She couldn't talk. She couldn't communicate. The only person she was having conversations was with the great I Am. She had no control over what was happening on the outside. But God, it was always impossible for her to do anything that she normally did in her life, normally that she would take care of without a doubt. She was dependent on somebody else, somebody greater than herself. And many times we think things are impossible because we look at it just from what we can do or what we have control over. And we can't control nothing, if truth be told. If we really told the truth about what's going on in our lives and what's going on in the world around us, it's impossible for us to do it. And it's especially impossible for us to do it by ourselves. But when you look at the I and the M in impossible, and you look up and you say, I am, then it all makes sense, because he can make the impossible possible. And I want to say this to you before we end. You talked about, you look at you've been able to see other people that's had the same type of tragic circumstance that you had with the brain aneurysm, and you see some of them have deformities, and we can't see any of that as we look at that beautiful smile on the screen right now. And I want to say this to you. Thank God you don't look like what you've been through. And I'm not just talking about the aneurysm. I'm talking about thank God you don't look like the person who tried to take herself out 3 times. Thank God you don't look like the person who mother chose a man over you, much less a man who was a convicted
Offender.
sex offender. Thank God you don't look like all the things you've been through. Thank God you don't look like the hurt that you must have felt on the inside when you went across oceans for others and then they wouldn't cross a puddle for you. Thank God that despite everything that he's done inside your head, that you still are here smiling and talking and sharing your story in your right mind. You're probably more in your right mind than some people who ain't even had a brain aneurysm yet. So thank God
Yeah.
for that. And thank God for you. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the epitome of whenever you think something is impossible in your life, look at this. Look at Jacquie and look to God because He is the great I am for a reason. He can turn your impossibilities into possibilities if you just, like Jacquie said, she's been guilty of, you continue to have a relationship with Him. He stops us in
Mhm.
our tracks. No, maybe for me, it wasn't a brain aneurysm. For me, he took away my good government job of 10 years. He stopped me in my tracks so that I could have a deeper, closer relationship with him. He stopped her with a brain aneurysm so that she could have a closer relationship with him. Somebody who's watching this right now, live or in replay, you can tell your own story, your own unstoppable story of how, in hindsight, you see that he has stopped you in your tracks somehow, some way, so that he could have a relationship with you. Recognize
I
that
want to
whatever you're going through, you may think it's impossible right now, but if you stop and have a closer relationship with him, he'll turn your impossibles into possibles. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
That's right. I want to share something I always share, like when I close out my show too. But I also want to thank some people. One, I want to thank you, Terrence, because you are the first person that I said yes to since this, and the encouragement that you've given me, off air, um, is very much appreciated.
You're very welcome.
Also, also, I have to thank Jared A. Birch. So that is actually my value coach. So he has been preparing me to get back out there and be confident in doing interviews like this. People who don't know me um, can't tell the mishaps versus what I was like before this happened, but I can tell.
Right.
So, um, and I also have to thank because I could not have made it this far um, without the neurosurgeon team at Eskenazi Health. I have to thank them. They did an amazing job taking care of me. And, I've been in the hospital 2 more times since the brain aneurysm. Um, and my whole rehabilitation team is absolutely amazing. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, mental health therapy. Everybody is amazing. Even the nurses and the doctors that I see for a constant blood pressure check and constant checkup. But last but not least, I have to thank Mark Brooks. Like, if he was not in my life, I honestly do not know who was going to take care of me. Like, when this happened to me, he was with a company that caused him to be gone for weeks at a time. You know how truck drivers are, come home. He quit
Yeah.
his job.
Especially over the road.
Oh, yeah. He quit his job to be at the hospital with me and to take care of me every single day. And he switched to a different company that would allow him to be home daily so that he could take care of me. Um,
Yeah.
and I have, I have never. been able to experience someone outside of my grandmother and my godmother, especially a male.
Mhm.
And my father was absent too, so I've never experienced a male that would take that level of care and concern and love for me. So I would not be here without him, and he took care and still takes care of all of my affairs. So I owe a big thank you to all of those people, because there's no way that I could make it here without them. And I know too, like I said, it's God orchestrated, that he put them in place, what I'm saying, for this very reason. And what I want to say to your listeners is, this is something that I share at the end of my show every Saturday morning, the Unpacked radio show. After all of the hell you went through, the word through is an indication that you defeated the impossible too. New adversities will come, but overcoming them has already made you unstoppable, the favor over your life incomparable, which gives you the right to think and believe I'm possible.
Mm. And that is where we shall leave it. Jacquie Morrell, Lady J on the Unstoppable Story Show. I ain't gonna forget how you threw that unstoppable into the end of your statement. That's cool. I like that. I'm gonna have to listen to the replay. We're gonna have to take that and take some credit for that. My people gonna have to talk to your people about some royalties somewhere along the way. Oh, but you know what? Thank you. I'm humbled that you accepted my invitation, especially being the first invitation for you to do something that, clearly you were very nervous to do, and you handled this like a champ. So I thank you for
I
that,
am
as I knew
nervous.
you would. Well, again, thank God you don't look like what you're going through right now. But more importantly, thank you for continuing to spread your story, tell your story, and spread the message of possibilities. Because especially in a time like this, what we're going through in the year 2020, we need to know that things are possible. We need to know that all is not lost. We need to know there are families that need to know, that need to be encouraged, because there's still families that are in hospitals now, that are on respirators, that are fighting for their lives, that are where families are being told that it may be impossible for them to come out, but knowing that your story exists, knows that if he can do it for the resistant Jacquie Merle, then he can do it for anybody. If he can do it for a short, stubborn, arrogant, sometimes brother from the South Side like Terrence Leffridge, if he can turn him into Mr. Unstoppable, then anything is possible with the great I am. And I want you to continue to keep sharing your story. And oh, by the way, now that you shared your story on the Unstoppable Story Show, I know for a fact that people are going to want to be reaching out to you, getting your information so that they can have you their story, share your story on their platform. And when we get back into the new normal where we can go out in public, on their stages as well. So how can they get in contact with you, Jacquie?
Okay, well, I'm going to just give you one website because it kind of wraps up everything that I do. So you can go to www.ladyj.co. That's www.ladyj.co. And there it talks about, who I am, what I do, what my companies are. So you can get to Ego Entertainment from there, where the magazine, the radio station and stuff is at. You can get to life support from there, and the nonprofit as well for homeless people. If you want to email me, you can email me at ladyjbrand@gmail.com. That's ladyjbrand@gmail.com, or just fill out the contact form on the website there. And it has all my social media links as well. So on my website.
All right. So you can email her at ladyjbrand@gmail.com, or check out her website at ladyj.co. That's C-O for y'all. Don't do the C-O-M. You ain't going to get there.
Right.
ladyj.co. It's right there on the screen. Thank you so much, Lady J, for hanging out with us, for telling your story, and again, letting us know that what is impossible for man is more than possible for God. And because God was on your side, then you are possible and you continue to be unstoppable. Thank you so much for all that you do and keep doing what you do, okay?
Thank you. You do the same. Continue this platform because people definitely need to know that, listen, everything is possible to overcome with God. So appreciate what you're doing. Keep it up. And I'm gonna have you
Absolutely.
on soon too. So
Okay, I'll be looking forward to it. Okay, so I'm gonna put you back down in the green room, but don't disconnect, okay?
okay.
All right, you guys, that is a wrap for the Unstoppable Story Show. I told you that it was going to be a great show. She is doing fabulous things, wonderful things, powerful things, and I definitely want you guys to keep in contact with her. Go to ladyj.co. You see it on the screen. You can get more information and you can hear her tell her unstoppable story again and again and again. It is definitely worth hearing, and it's definitely worth getting to know her and see all the other things that she is doing. So, you guys, hey, if you want to be a guest on the Unstoppable Story Show, then you know what to do. Just go to info@unstoppablecoaching.com. We would love to have you as a guest, and so that you could tell your unstoppable story as well. But as always, wherever you are in the world today, you know what I say. Don't just make it a great day. Recognize that the impossible is possible with God, and go out and make it an unstoppable day. Take care.